Well, after a period of 13 years, we've at long last seen one of Italy's greatest clubs in Inter Milan finally make it to a Champions League final. Incidentally, last time they made it to the final, they ended up lifting the trophy, but since then, they've struggled a lot. And when I believe you when I say a lot, when it comes to just how much they've had to struggle in not just domestic football, but even European level football. Finally, though, it's nice to see them get back to where a lot of their fans would feel they deserve being.
Yeah. Three-time champions. 2010 is when they last lifted the trophy. It was Jose Mourinho who's the manager back then. So much has changed in these 13 years as far as Inter are concerned. It's mostly been lows than highs for them. But finally now, as my dear colleague Shane just said, the club and the fans feel this is where they belong. It is in many ways reminiscent, this whole achievement of them making the final of the Champions League, something that the club management, I would say the top management, the top brass and the fans feel this is where they deserve to be, albeit they are up against, or rather they were up against AC Milan, who have a much richer history, let's say, as far as the competition goes. But the city rivals, let's not forget, and for that reason too, the Inter Milan fan base feels that this is exactly where they belong, and now they've given themselves a shot of winning the fourth title in the history, in the club history, and after 13 years, that's a long time, Shane.
In fact, if you remember, and I think you'd also relate to this age-wise, when not too distant, early to mid 2000s, the Milan clubs, the Inters and ACs, were chock-a-block full of legends.
Absolutely.
You loved watching these teams play just because there were so many great players on display. In fact, even to go back to that last Inter team, you had a Cambiaso, a Melito, you had a
Nesta,
Nesta was a AC. Yeah.
We're not talking about AC.
We're talking about Inter.
You had a Zanetti back then. Again, Zanetti, by the way, somebody who's been talking now because I think he's the director of the sporting director, if I'm not wrong. Zanetti, in fact, I was reading his comments and he said, if I had to pick a rival, let's say in the final, I'd not want Real Madrid.
No, I don't blame him. No one wants Real Madrid. That's just the nature of the beast. But I think whoever.
Since we were speaking and since we have a striker, let's not forget Melito as well. Melito was the one who scored so many of those goals. Again, one of those signings, by the way, of Jose Mourinho, which was again nobody.
A masterstroke.
A masterstroke. Just a year or two later, when he was with the Chelsea as well, he said that, okay, Mr. Abramovich, just listen to me, let me do my job, get me Drogba, this is what will win you the Champions. He did something with Inter as well. Nobody knew about Melito much. Look what he does, he had a vital role to play in the 2010 Champions League title also. That
in fact, if you remember, in the final, it was against Bayern Munich, he scored both the goals.
Yeah.
So, couldn't have been more, this thing. And that team was star-studded because, again, Schneider, their main playmaker, you had Wesley Schneider, you had Cambiaso, you had Samuel Eto'o, who would be playing on the left wing.
Yes.
So they had a very star-studded team. And even if you go back prior, you've had a Zlatan Ibrahimovic for Inter. In fact, in the 90s, this is before either of us were, even born in some cases, AC Milan and Inter Milan and Juventus, the three Italian clubs, were very much the financial powerhouses, which is why you saw so many top players at that point actually choose to go to Italy. Obviously, now things have changed. The Premier League's power might has caught up. The Spanish two clubs also, rife with cash, rife with history. But Italian football, seeing a club like Inter Milan rise up again, there's something special about
Absolutely. It. Also remember, this was the time that Shane's talking about, also is the time that remember that they won the FIFA World Cup as well in 2006.
Yeah.
So all of this was happening, and Italian football was at the core of all of this. You had an AC Milan which was at the peak of their powers. You had Inter which was trying to catch up in many ways, and in 2010 in many ways it did also. So Italy was the hub of the football base, let's say, with so many of their players who had Italy as their preferred destination. And then yes, of course, the Premier League did catch up, or in many ways people would disagree and say that the Premier League was always much ahead of the Serie A. But the stars that you talk about, who are probably, let's say, they're in La Liga right now, or were in La Liga, let's say, and the Premier League, which manages to attract stars, Italian football back then was speaking to an extent that some of the biggest superstars, some of whom we just named, prefer to go and join one of the Italian clubs as well. Exactly. To an extent, by the way, all of them, barring a few cases here and there, managed to play for all three clubs also.
Yeah, quite a few. It's not uncommon. In fact, if you look at even just the Italian players, Zlatan Ibrahimovic has played for all three. Yeah. Pirlo played for all three. Yeah. So it's not uncommon. It does tend to happen. In fact, even in the recent, if you look at some of the players who are playing right now in the current squads. Yeah. So like Inter have had Hakan Çalhanoğlu. So from AC he came to Inter. Yes. Another one of Inter's guys who's like a utility player, Matteo De Sciglio. He started his career at AC, then went to Juventus, now at Inter Milan. So he's also done the entire gambit. It's not uncommon. Happens with a lot of these players. In fact, who's the one player in recent history who did it? Zlatan. He's now back again at AC Milan. So he's played for Juve, he played for Inter, he played for AC. It just was a thing. These clubs were so powerful that they really had no choice but to do business with each other. Because if you had to leave in Inter Milan, where were you going? Either abroad, or if you wanted to stay in Italy, it had to be to one of the other clubs. Yeah. So obviously, and we've seen the mighty have fallen a lot since then. But seeing again Inter, remember 2020-21 champions, 2021-22 the Milan club were champions. Yeah. Now you're seeing Inter make it to the final. And let's be fair, Inter were helped a little bit by their draw. Yeah. They did luck out a bit in the draw. They got Tottenham side in, the Tottenham was AC Milan. But even Inter, but where I'll give Inter full credit, they got out of that group. Yeah. It was a tough group.
It was a very tough group. A group that had Bayern Munich, a group that had Barcelona. You expected those to progress and not Inter, and at Inter's expense, let's say. But that, kudos, and any side that makes it to the final, they don't reach there by fluke. And this, even though when you look at the Serie A table, you'd be like, okay, how have Inter really done this? And especially given the semi-final, the quarter-final tie, I would say, Inter had the easier tie. It was AC Milan who were playing Napoli then.
Exactly.
So, and you thought that, coming into this particular fixtures, this two-legged fixture, you thought that AC Milan had done much more in the recent weeks in the Champions League and they'd be high on confidence. But guess what? Over two legs, they didn't manage to score. In fact, interestingly, and Shane would probably be a better person to talk us through those details of those matches. But 4 times that they've played each other, Inter and AC, this whole while, no goals being scored by AC Milan, not even a single goal.
AC, in fact, we were talking about, Inter winning the title in 2020-21. Milan won it, Inter won it in 2021. AC Milan won it in the 22 season. Both teams were unable to actually match the level of investment that got them to the top. But I think Milan's drop has been steeper because as things stand, they are either not in the top 4 or struggling to stay in the top 4 domestically. It's not a good situation for them. Inter, on the other hand, are comfortably in the top 4. So they know that even if they lose the final, they do get another crack. And mind you, it's going to be a tough final for Inter no matter who
they play.
I mean, you're either up against 14-time champions Real Madrid, who are looking to add a 15th. In fact, I saw an interesting quote from Fede Valverde. He said that I'd love to add a 15 because it's my squad number. And I'm like, whoa. That's your reason to want to add a 15? Has it reached that point that you've won so many Champions League that you have to come up with arbitrary reasons?
Yeah.
But that's just how, they regard it as their own trophy, really, Real Madrid. Inter, on the other hand, 3-time champions. But considering the kind of run they've had, can you put it past them and say that no, they don't really stand a chance? I wouldn't go that far. This isn't, say, what Tottenham were in 2019. Yeah. That was a side that was clearly running on fumes. This side, they have something, and in Lautaro, the man who scored that one goal, in the second one around, he's been in fine form really this year. Many people thought that when Lukaku left, then came back, there'd be some issues when it came to how Lautaro would manage it. Because again, Lautaro was someone who you'd largely seen play in a 2-striker system. But even with Lukaku not being a guaranteed starter, he's been very, very good for Lautaro.
He could as well, be one of the few players who ends this year with a World Cup title and a Champions League winner's medal.
Exactly, that's a rare thing, especially considering how horrible he was for Argentina. With no disrespect, he was very terrible whenever he came on. And he's a very different player for club than he's been for country. But for club, the guy has been phenomenal. In fact, again, if you go back to even when they won the Serie A, the 2020-21 season, the Lula combination, which is Lukaku and Lautaro, were very key to it. And Lautaro, his link-up play, movement, he does have a bit of that Tevez Aguero doggedness in him. If I have to draw a comparison to his compatriots, he has that in him. So I think he is going to be key. Inter, again, they are one of those sides who you look at and you're like, They lack star power.
Yeah.
But they are a team that plays like a team. That's a big advantage.
But there's one thing with regardless of who they play in the final, they will go in as underdogs.
Yes, and that actually works better for them.
Exactly what was on my mind as well. That it at times does help when you don't have something to prove. Let's say Guardiola has been running after the Champions League for years and years now. He's been wanting to prove a point. This Inter Milan side maybe don't have something to prove.
They've already overachieved.
Exactly, and this is again something that was being said for Arsenal as well, let's say.
Yes.
They've already, because nobody thought that a team that didn't make it in the top 4 last year, or rather hadn't done it in a while now, nearly half a decade, for them to suddenly jump to number 5 and for a 36 game weeks challenge Manchester City for the title is job well done.
Exactly.
But and the same goes for Inter as well. You weren't really expecting them, given the group that we just talked about, that they were slotted in, to be making it to the final of the competition. But look what they've done.
That's the thing. They've really surpassed everyone's expectations, including, I think, a lot of Inter fans. Because even they would be, actually just, wondering, is this a dream? That we've made it to the final of the Champions League for the first time in 13 years. 13 years. And the last time they made it unexpectedly, they won. So again, I would love to see it happen if it does, that they lift the trophy. I think it'll be great for football as a whole. It would be a good beacon also that Italian football, despite them having a lot of financial problems. I mean, you've had a Napoli lift the title first time around in 30 odd years.
33 if I'm
Yes.
wrong,
Now Inter, if they do it, I mean, it's great. I personally have always had a soft spot for Italian football. And I think if you see more and more of these results coming, it's just better for the, appeal of the league and for football's health as a whole.
And for football, because again, yes, Real Madrid hands down, it's been their competition in many ways. There's nobody even coming close to them for another decade, and I can safely say that because of the massive gap or that massive gulf that you already see that they've developed.
Exactly. I mean, if you think about the gap, they have 14. The next best are AC
with 7.
It's half.
Yeah. And you can't, again, for AC Milan to, let's say, overcome that deficit, you don't know if it's not happened. They've not won a title since 2007. You don't know when an AC Milan can perhaps make it. So forget, competing with Real Madrid for another good 2 to 3 decades. There's no club that you really see overhauling them. And for this competition, for it to look as more holistic, let's say, you need more challengers as well. You need more winners. And that's why I'd love to see Inter Milan go ahead. I wouldn't have minded AC Milan to do it as well, but then hands down they were the better side across the two legs.
Yeah, 2-0, 1-0.
Yeah, very comprehensive as you like. Very comfortable wins. But yes, there is another semi-final coming up, the second leg of which will happen in about a few hours time from now. Shin and I will be building up to that match as well in about 10 to 12 minutes.
So stay tuned.
Do tap on the bell icon so that you know when we are live. It's going to happen very shortly, and let us know your thoughts as well. It's going to be a cracker of a match. Thank you so much.